during the raid. And we have 15 minutes to get into the system and disable whatever booby traps Gerhard set up. He's a highly paranoid person, okay? So he knows that the police would likely want to get into his system. So he's got some things in place that are going to try and defeat that. So you don't really have a choice. You're the only person with the skill set to potentially disable these things, given that your boss is dead. And so after 15 minutes, you can be pretty assured, or 20 minutes maybe, it's a little bit fuzzy, you can be assured that you're going to get locked out. That's the downside. The positive side is we have a snapshot, and this is all fake. So you get to have another go at it and have another go at it until you get in. Once you get in, you have to figure out how to decrypt the hard drive, okay, and gather a bunch of information off of it. Okay, so let's see. Your challenge here is he's got some screen locking set up, which basically every 15 minutes the screen's going to lock and he just types in his long password. Okay, do not try and crack his password. You're not going to succeed at cracking the password. It's paranoid enough that you're not going to be able to do it. So what you need to do is disable the protective measures that he has. That will probably take you a couple of hours to get past that initial bump, okay? Once you get past that, then you're going into straight out analysis without the time limit in place, okay? So you're going to be rolling back a few times probably. Once the screen's not at risk of locking, I want you to do a live response investigation. We're looking for a KeePass database containing URLs and passwords to remote locations, okay? And so I want you to list that in a report that you're going to produce. Okay. I want you to provide me with the password to the encryption on the system. That's probably going to be the hardest challenge. Okay. I want you to decrypt the drive so that we can actually take an image of it. I'm not asking you to take an image. That's a future activity. Okay. So you're just doing the live response part here. Anything that you find that is considered to be unusual, you should take hashes of. So any kind of booby traps that he's set up, you should take hashes of the files involved. Any kind of things that you consider to be evidence that might prove that he's a bad guy, you want to take hashes of, okay? And that should also be part of your report. When you're taking hashes of them, I want the full path to where those files were located, not just file name, okay? The report you're going to produce is essentially going to be a live response forensic report. Okay, so you want it to be sufficiently detailed and to understand that you know they're going to want to look at it to make sure that you didn't spoil evidence, essentially, or if you did, it was justified. Yeah, and so the end result, what we're looking to do is to decrypt that drive. Okay, if we can't do that, overall we failed, but you know, there's still some part marks available out of that. Now, in real life, you get one shot at this, obviously, so we would all fail in that circumstance. But for the purposes of this lab, you get to roll back. And so you can treat it more like an escape room challenge, you know. You get a few shots at it. And like I said, it takes about a couple of hours of dedicated effort. Some people do it quicker. Some people take a little longer. Okay, now, for the deliverable, it's all about a report. Okay, now that means that your report is very important. I don't care what you found if your description of it is junk, right? It's the description that matters. Hmm? Yeah, exactly. Or we got the sucker. Or even like if you say, oh well, you know, this process was doing something very strange, and I looked it up, and this website said that's bad news. That's not really a good. Well, you have to analyze what is it that this process is doing, or what is this executable for, you know, and you have to be able to explain it. Okay, so I want a cover page, the usual shtick. What traps were in place that you had to bypass? There may be more traps than you actually find. That's okay. I don't need you to catch every single one. I need you to explain how you got past the ones that you did encounter. Okay. But that would include an analysis of how they work. A list of suspect files found on the system. So that's where the hashing would come in. A list of any usernames and passwords found. Okay. Sometimes you'll get a username without a password, in which case just include the username. A list of installed software, a report and summary of unusual startup items. So that could be anything that auto runs might show, right? Unusual processes, those are not executables. Those are things that are running in RAM, okay? So not something on the file system. And then I do ask for what's the software on the file system, but that's a separate consideration, okay? There's a little bit of discussion involved in here in terms of, I want you to go into the little bit of the history of VeraCrypt, just to tell me, how solid the encryption is, where the history comes from. And the same thing with the Tor network, okay, because he is running a Tor client. Any kind of discussion about what you did or didn't like, or recommendations about improvement for the lab. And finally, we're looking to decrypt that drive. So if you succeed in obtaining the encryption password, I'd like you to decrypt the drive and just show a screenshot where it goes, drive successfully decrypted. Okay. And then you explain how you did it, essentially. So showing the system booting without a password is enough to demonstrate this. This can be done in person, but a screenshot is fine as well. Okay. Now, this is actually based on a real circumstance, although I modified it kind of generously. So this is based on how they caught Ross Ulbricht from the Silk Road. Difference being that he was running a Linux system, and I didn't want to throw a Linux system at you. But what they had to do was they caught him in a library. They distracted him by two cops pretending to be a couple having an argument, and like a physical argument. And then when he got all distracted by that, somebody grabbed his laptop and, and then they arrested him. But I want to focus on Windows environment, so that's what we're going to do. But that was kind of the inspiration for some of this. Okay. And if I was a criminal, I'd probably go Linux too, because they've got some fairly robust robust software that you can use to help protect yourself. That being said, he made some dumb mistakes too. So he only encrypted his profile, and he didn't store everything in his profile in his home folder. So he wasn't always on top of things. Okay, now this is the rubric, and I've heard from people before where they're kind of like, there's this list of deliverables, and then there's this rubric, and I'm a little confused about, what's worth what. So what I've done is I've mapped this list of deliverables with the rubric so that you can see within that list of deliverables where I'm evaluating things. Okay, just so people stop talking about that, but also so you can kind of understand, that list is not random. It actually feeds into the rubric, and this is how. Okay. Now let's see. In terms of group work, this can be solo or it can be up to 3. Okay, so 1, 2, or 3, whatever suits you. If you're a group of 3, you're still writing a single report. Okay, same thing with a group of 2. If you're solo, you're still writing a single report. This is harder than the previous one by most people's estimates. I have had some people say, "Oh yeah, the hacking lab was harder." That's a minority opinion, though. So just to give you a sense, this is more of a challenge, and the emphasis is much more on the writing of the report. Okay. I don't want any screenshots except for the decryption drive. So you could do tables, things like that, but I don't want you to focus on imagery. I want you to use your words to explain things. Okay. And that's kind of what would be expected in a court a lot of the time. Next lab, you'll have more opportunity to show pictures and stuff, but I just want to kind of get that out of your system a little bit, like make you not use it for a little while. In terms of what constitutes cheating, groups can talk to each other, but at a higher level. Okay, within a group, you could say anything you want. Between groups, you should be general and kind of vague, but you can point each other in directions. You could say, "Oh, this this tool was really useful, or, I suggest you go to this website or this URL, or, try this out without going into too much detail, okay? But you're still going to have to submit your own analysis, and you have to be able to explain things properly. So that's ultimately where I'm, ensuring that everybody's doing their work. Evidence of copying between the groups, that would be treated as plagiarism. And if you just copy off the web to give me, a description of some feature, that would also be considered plagiarism. So try and avoid that. Put it in your own words, okay? So I expect you to write all your own sentences, in other words. Now, this is a technical issue that can come up, and it will come up for at least one or two of you. There's what I'm doing here is I'm giving you a VM that's already pre-suspended. As you know from Star Wars, that can sometimes lead to weirdness, okay? So you may get an error like this when you're trying to resume. And the reason that you might be getting this is that your RAM and your processor is sufficiently different from the one that I suspended this on, okay? The fix for this is actually really quite easy. It takes about 2 minutes to put into place. So if you do bump into this, don't freak out. Just recognize it for what it is. Contact me, and we can either in person or through Quick Assist, we can connect together. All I have to do is essentially restart the system, put in the password on your system, and suspend it using your own processor and RAM, and then it will behave itself, okay? Most of you won't bump into this, but if you see it, know it for what it is. You're not going to get past it without us doing that. Now, below, there are hints. So if you don't like hints, which some people don't, then avoid looking any further. If you do like hints, or if you get really frustrated and you're like, screw it, I want a hint, then you can go down here for some other stuff. The mileage varies on the hints. Some of them are really useful. Some of them are, they just remind you of things that we did in class. All of this is heavily reliant on the exercises, you'll see. Okay. Okay, so I'll just show you what, if I can. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll make that a little more full screen. There we go. Okay, now go away, Google. Maybe I have regrets. Hold on. So if I click on resume here, this is what you're going to see. It's set so that basically I started up the VM, I typed in the password for, the encryption, and then I took a snapshot of it. I suspended it and took a snapshot. So the idea here is it's going to log in automatically, and that's where the raid starts. Okay, so there's Gerhard. He's at the machine. He's a little bit surprised. He shoots your boss. He gets arrested, and now you have your shot at the system to try and get stuff off of it. Okay. So it's going to look like this, and you've got about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not sure exactly how much, it's a little variable. It'll lock you out periodically. When you get locked out, there's no way to get back in, okay, except to just go to VM and go to snapshot, revert to pre-resume, yes, and then just start it back up again, okay? Once you get past the booby traps and it's no longer locking on you, then you can take your sweet time. Now, part of the purpose of this is for you to analyze what's actually happening there, looking at processes, looking at startup items, making sure that you can figure out what's triggering all of this, okay? Okay, so any questions? Okie dokie, let's look at times just quickly here, and then I'll let you go. Probably later. Yeah, probably later. That's true. I will mention our timelines here, and then I'll let you guys go. So, is this what I want? Maybe. Did he really? Adrian saying Trump pledged to release Ross Ulbricht if he gets into power. That's crazy. I mean, well, he did try and have someone killed. So multiple people. He put contracts out on people. So I don't know about that. But yeah, if we just go to the calendar, I think we've got 3 classes on this, and then you get a week after that, if I remember correctly. Okay. So today is a good day to kind of get your group organized. Yeah. So okay. So live response, live response, live response. Then you get the quiz. The quiz will feel much easier once you've done a lot of this stuff. Okay. So I treat that kind of, you are busy that class, but you get the whole day to work on it kind of thing. And then a week later from the last actual reserved lab time, the lab will be due. Okay. I'm hoping that's more than sufficient, really. I can't really extend much, but I've been giving an extra week for every lab these days, and that seems to work pretty well for people. So, okay, I will let you guys go to it. I'm going to go get myself a coffee, maybe even a little snacky,